Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial about Adobe Premiere Rush. This will be on the desktop. I will record one for iOS as well. Um, they're basically the same. It's very minor differences, so you can follow this one if you prefer. What is Adobe Rush? Adobe Rush is basically Premiere Pro for mobile devices, such as Android and iOS. Also, Adobe Rush can be used on desktops. It can be used on pretty much any desktop. So if you're struggling to run Premiere Pro, you might find that Adobe Rush works better for you. Adobe Rush is also really useful as it is completely cloud-based, which means that it syncs between devices. So as long as your device has access to the file, you can use your iPad and then switch back to your PC to export it. So you're completely flexible with that way of working. Now, because it is cloud-based, I do recommend if you're planning to switch between devices, that you put them into a cloud storage, such as Adobe's own Creative Cloud files, which is what I'll use today. You get 100 gigs of free storage with your Adobe account, or your OneDrive or your Dropbox. So any of those, you can all be linked. You do have obviously a OneDrive account with your university email as well, so you can use that if you want. But like I said, if you're planning to just use your laptop or your desktop and not move between devices, you can just use your files locally, and that won't cause a problem either. So I'm going to put my file. You might be copying from an SD card. I'm just going to copy and paste it into my Creative Cloud files. A little bit about Creative Cloud. You will see a green tick applied to your files that are online. So once it's uploaded, it'll go green. But because we're editing locally, we don't need to worry about that. But just be aware that your files might not be available on other devices until it has fully synced. So I'm going to open Adobe Rush now. So you'll be greeted with this screen. If you're opening it for the first time, you might get a tutorial. I recommend following that. I'm going to go over most of what it covers, but it is always good to get information from more than one place. So the first thing you want to do is you want to create a new project. So to do that, it's very easy. You simply press on the New Project button, which is this one up in the top left corner, nice and blue, so you can't miss it. So simply click Create New Project, and then you'll see that you've got your local devices on the top left. In the middle are your clouds, and then you've got your favorites folders. Should you choose to use favorites, I think it's easier just to go straight to your cloud device, personally. So you can see I've linked my Creative Cloud files, my Dropbox, and my OneDrive straight to Premiere Rush, so I can see all of my files straight away. So my file, as you just saw, we moved into Creative Cloud. So we go to files now appeared. It might take a couple of seconds to load. And I'm just going to open Story 2 Bell Ringing. It's a good idea to select all the clips on your import, but you can add them later, and I'll show you how to do that once we're loaded into the project. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see it's asking you to give a project name. I would suggest calling this something logical. I'm just like Bell Ringing PKG, something like that, so you know what you're calling it. If you have a load of projects, it can get quite messy because you can't choose where to save them, but you just save in one big pool. So giving them a nice obvious name always helps. Next, you've got the option to choose to sync to Creative Cloud. I would recommend turning this on, otherwise your work is stored locally and you might lose it. And also you can choose to copy the media locally. It's not a problem on my computer, it's already on there, but if you are having issues, it might be worth copying it over. Once that's done, you can just simply hit create and it will load a project. It might take a couple of minutes to prepare the media. My computer's pretty decent, so it should happen almost instantly. Yours might take a bit longer, as it does have to convert the files to a friendly format. I should also note at this point, there is no way of taking a stereo recording and making it mono in this software. You do have to record it correctly in the first place. I will create a tutorial in this playlist, which is how to use Media Encoder to create a mono file, so you can fix that before you start. Great. So quickly show you around the interface. At the top left, there is a blue plus. This is your add media option. So you can add a title, you can import extra footage if you haven't done it, and you can also record a voiceover in-app, which is pretty useful. Below the plus is this like little archive box. This is your project assets. It's basically your bin if you're used to Premiere or Avid. So you can see your sequence is stored here, and any other media you might want is also stored here. And you can just simply drag and drop clips in. There's no way to trim it before you import it. You have to do that on the timeline, which is a little bit annoying. But that's just the way it is. You can also delete clips by going to the three dots and hitting delete. Great. So moving down, I would always suggest turning your tracks on, which is Control T. This just puts it in a format which you might be more familiar with. You've got your videos at the top, and you can add voiceover and music at the bottom. The video tracks themselves are actually audio-visual tracks, so you might notice that there is no separate audio file for this clip. It is baked in. You can make it bigger by expanding the track, but just be careful with this, as when you edit the clips, sometimes you can see there the video can change, but the audio doesn't. It won't do that if you don't have the clips expanded. If you close the track, it will edit them both at the same time, which is a little bit annoying because I prefer to edit with the waveform. But obviously just be aware of that. You can close it and then edit it and then reopen it again if you prefer to do so. So obviously you can't edit the normal split track way, which is audio 1, audio 2, audio 3. So how I like to do it is I like to use the same method of A1 being full sound, A2 being, ambient kind of stuff, and A3 being your voiceover. I like to do this by using the first video track as full sound, and then you can drag up to make a second video track, and I use this as my cutaway track, and also my wild sounds. So just working in that way just keeps a little bit of structure and a bit of familiarity with your edit. So, how do you edit? First thing to do is make sure, obviously, you unexpanded that audio track. And there are two ways. The first way, which is the best way I think, is you drag your playhead to where you want the edit to be. So I'm just going to start this person talking. There we go. And you literally hit this scissor icon on the left of your screen here. And that is a split clip. And it basically just cuts your clip in half on where the playhead is. You can also just press the letter S if you've got a keyboard available, which I'll do here. So I'm just going to end the answer there and just literally hit S. And you can see there now we have got 3 clips on the timeline, all the rushes from before, the clip we've isolated, and the rest of the rushes. So obviously this is our first interview, so I want to put that at the start of the clip, the sequence even. So you can just click on the clip, click and drag, and just slide it over. And you'll notice the clips reorganize themselves. You can't overwrite, it will just force it to go to the start or the end, so you don't need to worry about that. You also notice that it won't let you leave a blank space on the first video track, so there's no possible way of editing it wrong. It is purely an insert operation like in Premiere. So there we go, there's our first clip, and I'm just going to get rid of these rushes for now. I'm just going to literally, you can right click and press delete, or you can just click and hit delete. And then I'm going to grab the second voice here, and I'm going to do it slightly differently this time. I'm going to use these orange tabs either side of the clip, and I'm just going to drag them in. And you can see that gives you a little bit of a video preview, and there we go. And I'm going to do the same just to neaten it off at the end. There we go, like that. So now we've got 2 voices, nice and easy. Nice basic edit. I should also note that if you want sound to be on while you scrub through, you can very simply just press play audio while scrubbing, and then you'll get sound as you scrub through. It's your preference whether you want to do that or not. Great. So now we've got a nice, simple 2-voice sound on tape. Okay, so I've actually left a question in there, which is ideal. And then it just goes straight to the desktop. We prefer to edit over our, so we prefer to hide our edits. So I'm going to go back into my project bin, and I'm going to re-add the rushes to the end of my sequence just by hitting add. And there we go, we can see our rushes again. And I am just going to find a nice little cutaway shot. There's a big bell. Let's use that. So I'm just going to drag to the in, and then let's mix it up. I'm going to just hit S to cut them out. I'm going to delete the extra rushes, and then just drag and drop it up onto the second video line, and drag it over the edit, like so. So now we'll get just a classic British edit of just someone talking, clips playing over themselves, and then the voice change. Probably a little bit too long. You can make that shorter if you want, like so. So now we've got our edit in place. We can just check the audio. I like to do next. If you go onto this right tab here, there are some useful tools. The one we want to go to is the audio tab, which is Control 5 or Command 5. And there is a basic audio control, which is just literally setting the clip volume, make it louder or quieter. 50 is at recorded level. You can go into advanced and you can play with, like, there's some automated volume control. Personally, I just turn it off. You should have recorded it right in the first place. But you can, if you need to, add some extra effects here. Or I just find basic control is fine. And you can also turn channels on or off. This is a bit pointless as it doesn't make the channel mono. So it'll just play out of one ear. So just leave them both on and use my other tutorial to make them into a mono file if you need to do that. Great, so I'm just going to turn these church bells down by clicking on it. And then now I can control that clip's volume. So I'm just going to turn it down to 9. Let's see how that sounds. So there we go. It's now significantly quieter. Perfect. Also on this window, there are transitions, which is Control 2. They're very basic. You get a cross dissolve, a dip to black, and a dip to white. Click on the clip you want, and if you just press it, it'll add it to both sides of the clip. If you click and drag it, you can choose which side of the clip you want it to go on. So if you wanted to cross dissolve and cut out hard, you can do that. Or if you want like a clip to dip to white because your interview's fallen short or something like that, you can do that as well. Some other things you can do using these windows is you can affect the colour. Hopefully, ideally, it's been shot right in the first place, but if you need to, you can go to colour, which is Control 3. And then there are some built-in presets which don't really work. What you want to do is you want to go to Edit in the top right, and there we can see now we have got some basic controls, your exposure contrasts and your highlight shadows. So I can just bring that exposure down a little bit. I think it was a bit too hot personally. Just like that, or you can change the contrast, bring some of the shadows out of your shirt maybe. I wouldn't mess with the advanced controls. It kind of just looks horrible. Like adding sharpness to your image never looks good. So I would just leave them as they are. But you can play with them. You might want to put a vignette on something, and that is available for you to do there. One final tool for your video edits is your crop and rotate, which is Control Command and 6. And there we can change the position of the clip, and we could also add a bit of rotation. Let's say you've filmed a bit wonky, like this shot's actually a bit wonky into. There we go, and we can just scale it up again to hide the fact that we cropped it in. And there we go, we've got a nice level shot. You can add a crop as well if you want to. And you can also add a feather effect to it, which I wouldn't recommend doing. This is also how you'd create a picture-in-picture if you wanted to do that. I'll do an extra video on that later. One final thing you might want to do is change the speed of your clip, and that is just simply done with the speed control, which is Control 4. You can just simply click on that and you can change the clip speed, so you can slow it down and speed it up to how you prefer. Great, so that is a basic edit. You might want to add titles. You probably should add titles. And to do that is to simply click the Add Media button again and press Title. If you have your playhead where you want the titles to be, it'll automatically put it in for you. So simply hit Title and it will add it onto the second video line. I prefer my titles to be on the third line, just so I'm not getting confused. And you'll see it has kindly opened the styles titles for you. So you can make your own completely custom titles. I personally wouldn't bother. I think there's enough options here for you to use yourself. Personally, I prefer a classic lower third. This one animates in and gives you a name and a title option. And to edit these is really simple, really easy to do. You just simply double click on it and then you can type in the person's name. And then you can double click on the title and you can have their job role. I'm going to put my own, which is a CTD. You'll notice when you double click into it, it automatically moves to the edit column. This is where you can set the font, you can set the font size, you can set the color. All that good stuff is all available here. The same with the first name as well. You just simply click on the tab you want to edit. You can't unfortunately change the effect times. You can literally just install a new template if you wanted to do that. Personally, I think this looks pretty smart with the fact that it animates in and then fades off. What you can do, however, is simply use the trim tool here to make it longer and shorter as and when you need it, and it will change how quickly it animates for you as well, which is a pretty neat tool to use. So you can just go along and add titles to everything you need to. Just simply move the playhead to the next person, and you can either right click and duplicate the clip, or you can just add another title, and again just change it to be the house style you're using at the time. Scrub in a little bit so it comes on screen, and then you can edit it. Let's go with Cameron. There we go. This can be blue text. Obviously, you would use the correct job descriptions, and you'd capitalize the correct words as well. So there we go. We've got a very nice basic edit. Name. We've hidden our cuts. We've captioned everyone. Perfect. So you're happy. You've got a really good edit, and you want to export it to show the world. That's really easy to do. You just go to the Share tab at the top left of your screen. And then you can choose where you want to, they call it share, it's basically save it. I would always recommend saving it locally, so you got your own copy. You can automatically upload it to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Behance if you want to do that. Personally, I always like to export it, check it works fine, then re-upload it. But it does save you a little bit of time if you want to upload straight to YouTube. So if you're exporting locally, what you want to do is you want to give it a sensible name that you know what it's called. So I'm going to call this bell ringing edit 1. So I know it's the first edit I've done. You can choose where you want to save it. It's automatically going to my OneDrive at the moment. I'm going to just choose to go to my desktop so I know where it is. And then you can pretty much hit export straight away. I recommend going to the advanced settings and just making sure it's going to do a decent job. I personally like to export for YouTube 1080p at full HD. It's just a nice quality size. 68 megabits isn't too megabytes even isn't that bad. Check your frame rate. If you can export at 25 frames per second, this is the correct frame rate to be in. Some devices, Apple devices mostly, will lock you to be 30 FPS. And if you have to do that, you have to do that. Try and avoid anything that's like 23.976. You'll start having issues there. If you go for whole numbers, so 25, 30, 50, and 60 will tend to work better. If you can, 25 or 30, but the other formats will also work. You can also export down into mono if you want to do that as well. And then you can check your video here, make sure it's exporting everything you want to export. And then literally just hit export in the bottom right corner of the screen. And you'll see that it's starting to export now for you. It might take a little while for some people, but it will do it eventually. So here we go, got about 5 seconds left to export. Once it has been exported or published, you'll see that it lets you preview it. Also, you can quickly access it in the Explorer by pressing the View Explorer button. And there we go, you can see the bell ring and edit there. And then once you're happy, you can just press Done. When you press Done, it'll take you back to the share thing, so you can export another copy in a different format if you wanted to. Or if you find that you've made a mistake, you might want to go back to the edit screen. You can literally do that by hitting the edit tab in the top left, and that'll just pull you back into edit, and you can, maybe you've got your names the wrong way around, something like that. You can just quickly swap those over, like so, and then go back into share. If you're done and you want to start a new edit, you can just press the home button, and that'll take you back to your projects, and you can literally just start again with a new project. It's auto-saving automatically, so if you're done for the day and you want to, go watch YouTube or something else, you can literally just hit close, and that'll close the application. And it's nice and simple. In fact, you don't need to worry about saving it. Any questions, as always, feel free to give me a shout on my email or on Microsoft Teams. My name is Ben Jackson, for those of you who don't know me. Thanks for watching.